All right. So this, yeah, we were just looking at where Christian's from in El Salvador. So that's where he's at. That's where you were born, right?
Shitty place, shitty country.
And you're from New Jersey, right? And you're from Virginia. And then Anayeli, where are you from?
Aguascalientes, Mexico.
Okay, Mexico. So,
We're not Aguascalientes.
I'm actually multiple generations in New Jersey. I grew up at my mom's house, and she grew up in, which is interesting. Originally, that's why I wanted to move here. I said, I want to go someplace where no one knows me. And then I got here and I'm like, this is so weird. I don't know anybody. How did you make friends?
all right. So we're going to start just as a review. Because last time we looked at this was a while ago. So what we did before was we created this To-Do API app that's in Rails. And so if we'll take a look at the controller, we have an index action that just lists all the tasks, a create action that creates a task, an update action that updates a task, and then a destroy action that destroys the task. So this application, this Rails application, is just it's just an API, right? We're not generating HTML. No forms, nothing like that. It's just so that other applications can interact with this application, right? So, so I'm going to start that application, the Rails application. So I'm going to go to do, and then Rails S B $IP, and then I'm going to put it on port 8001. Okay. So then if I open up my URL, there's no application running there. But if I add :8001, I think 8001 is the application. Was it 8180?
That's the number I remember for some reason. I don't know why.
Let's try 8180. 8180. Or we can just Google it. So the last time to find that I said C9 full applications. 8081.
Just the zero.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so here we go. And then if I have the URL tasks, you can see that it gives me JSON, and it just gives me all the tasks that are currently in the database, right? So questions about that?
Hey, mine's are waking up from hibernation.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, in the meantime, I'm going to start my Apache application. So service Apache to start. And then I'm going to go to the normal URL. And then I'm going to go into the folder to do-js. So that's where we have our JavaScript application. So here we are. And remember that we can add a to-do item. Let's see, buy cheese and buy milk. So we just keep adding, right? And then last time we can either complete it or uncomplete it, right? You guys remember now where we are? Okay.
Oh,
All right. So then now the next thing we want to do is we want to tie this to our API so that this is actually using the Rails API and we're actually storing it on the Rails side, right? So let me open up our to-do-js app.
how did you do the 80/81?
So I started, so let me close Rails. So this is the Rails app. And then the command is Rails S dash B $IP. And then, yeah, dash B. Sorry? It won't open?
Closing it, open a new one?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can just open a new one. So P just stands for port, and that means that it's just gonna listen on that port 8081. B stands for bind, so it means listen on this IP address. Because if you have, typically, your computer is just gonna have one IP address, but like this machine or different computers can have multiple IP addresses, and so. You're telling it, listen on this IP address, attached to this IP
So
address.
the dollar sign means this.
The $sign is a variable in Bash. So to see the value of that variable, you can do echo $IP, and you can see that it's 0.0.0.0.
No application.
When you go to 8081, and you see right here, you see Rails 5 application, and then HTTP 0000:8081. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then in the URL, you go to like the name of your workspace dash your username c9users.io colon 8081.
No application ready. Why?
What's the URL that you're going to?
Oh, wait.
It's colon instead of forward slash.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just look over.
No, it was good. As you said it, I realized you guys said it. Wait. Okay. Okay. It's
And you also have a Apache application running, right?
okay. I didn't start.
So I'm opening up my my index.html file in the to-do-js folder. And remember that we have a few functions. We have the add function with this really complicated thing. And that's what's adding the line for the to-do. And then we have a function called complete that completes it. All right. So I'll wait for you guys to catch up.
I'm opening I'm opening just the to do, right?
Yeah. So when you to-do-js
Oh, okay.
is the folder. Yeah. To-do is the Rails application. To-do-js is the JavaScript application.
Cool. Oh, I didn't separate it, like, you separate it into.
Oh, like this?
Mine all in one line, but I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it should be fine. All right, so everyone good? Okay. All right, so then there's one thing with JavaScript applications. So JavaScript, we learned a while back that within JavaScript you can initiate a GET request or a POST request or any kind of request, right? Now, for security reasons, when you try to initiate a request with a server, and the JavaScript asks the server, hey, is it okay? I'm JavaScript. Is it okay if I do this GET request? And then the server either replies with, no, you can't, or it replies with, yes, you can. And so, so in order for that behavior to happen, we have to add something to a Rails server, and that's CORS. So CORS, HTTP access control CORS, which stands for cross origin something. But yeah, so here we have the, let's see. There we go. Yeah. So here we have what happens. So we do a GET request to get the main page. We get the layout, and then we get an image from this server, right? This is for our page. Now, JavaScript does a GET request to the second server, and for a different image and a different font request. And so that server has to give us access through this mechanism. So we don't have to really know the nitty-gritty of how it works. We just need to know that if we just did a request, it doesn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a gem to Rails to do this for us. So let me look for that gem. Rails CORS. I think, yeah, the name of the gem is Rack CORS. And so, this is how you install it, and then this is how you configure it. All right, so first I'm going to install it. And remember that anytime you add a gem, what you want to do is you want to add it to your gem file. So I'm opening up my Rails application, and then I'm clicking on gem file. And then you can put it anywhere, it doesn't matter, but I usually put it before this group development and test and these. So I'm going to put it right here. So it's gem rack dash CORS and then require rack dash CORS. And then I'm gonna install the gem. So I'm gonna open up a new terminal and then go into the to-do folder. So once you add the gem to the gem file, then you do a bundle install. Bundle install just looks at your gem file and then sees which gems are not installed in that gem file and then installs them.
Where did you add the gem?
So I added it right here. You can add it anywhere. I added it in line 33.
I see. Oh, okay, never mind. This developed.
Mm-hmm. So when you install a new gem, you have to restart your Rails server. So I'm going to stop it and then start it again. Actually, I also need to do some configuration. So This gem tells me that I have to do some configuration in this file, config application.rb. So I'm going to go to that file, config, and then application.rb. So we have that stuff right here. So let's see where we have to put it. So we have to put it module, your app, class application that extends Rails application. And then it gives us two ways of doing it. One way is for Rails 5 and one way is for Rails 3 or 4. So do you guys know which version of Rails we're using? 5, yeah. So so then we would need this. So I'm just going to take that and copy it. And then we're going to put it there. It's module. They have module your application. And in this case, we have the name of our application is to do. Right? So what this means is just some configuration, config, middleware, insert before. And then we're telling it what stuff to allow, right? Origin, star. Yeah. Okay. So now whenever we do something to that file, typically, whenever we change something in the config folder, it doesn't load it automatically. So we have to restart our Rails application. Okay, so it looks like it works. All right. So now I'm going to open up the console and I'm just going to test to see if it's working. So let me do some let me Google jQuery Ajax. Because what I want to do is I want to do a GET request to our Rails app to get all of the tasks in the server, right? And then I'm going to display them. So here's the jQuery syntax. Here's an example. So that's what we're going to do. Let me open up index.html. So I'm just going to create a function right now. Function, and then I'm going to call it load because I'm loading all the tasks from the server. When you restart your Rails application, what's the uninitialized console?
Yeah. It says uninitialized constant wrap forms name error.
Let's see, do gem list course and see if you have rat course and then what version it is. So this is we're just checking if you have the gem installed and then what version of the gem is installed.
Says local gem wrap course math 1.0.1.
So the same one, right? Same version. Okay. Let me open up your workspace. And take a look at it. Where are you? Right here. Okay. Let me open up a terminal. So Rails S. All right, so application.rb, line 14. Okay, let me open up that file. Of course. Let's see. Let me look at your gem file. It looks correct. Let's see. I'm gonna comment that out for now to see what the error could be. And then I'm gonna load the application because that's not letting me load the application. So let's see if that variable is found once we load the application. So rack : course. Uninitialized constant. Wire rack course. Not load such file. Let's see. Rails 5. Look at gem file. Yeah, that's odd.
Wait.
You found something? Yeah.
It is really
No, I commented out on your machine. I commented out that part.
Oh, so then.
So yeah, it's gonna run.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the problem might be. Yeah, my code looks the same, I think.
Is it where I put it? So I need to put it somewhere else.
Oh, it looks like it'll be fine. I'll put it there. That's mine. Try restarting now. Okay, I don't know why it didn't like it being there. I would have to look at it, but I think it's working now. So it was just the ordering of when it was including the gems.
If that's the case, I know with games, some things have to load before other things load sometimes.
Yeah, but
While it's going down the list, maybe that's.
right, but bundler is built so that shouldn't make a difference. So it's kind of weird, but I mean that's at least how bundler is advertised to work. So well, at least it works. Right? All right. Okay, so now I'm gonna start my Rails server, Rails s-b IP it was 8081, right? Okay. Okay, so all right, so now I'm gonna continue my load function, right? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use the jQuery AJAX method. So $ dot let's see. Ajax. Oops. And then, actually, the method is called Ajax, and $ is the jQuery object, and then Ajax is the method that we want to use. Then the first parameter. Okay. Let's look at a simpler example. Let's look at this one. Okay, so Ajax, and then we're passing it the URL, and then
URL setting.
and then the data, right? Which trying to look at a simpler example. Now, don't get too worry about all of these things like before send. You know that like all of these things are documented. So okay, so I think this one's a good example. So this is just the URL, and then we'll just do that for now. Okay. So I'm gonna just pass it the URL for now. So the URL is it's going to be different for you guys. So for me is https://rails, because that's the name of my workspace, -ctd instructor, because that's the username, and then c9.users.io :8081 /tasks. So we want the tasks because that's where we're loading the JSON from, right? Right. So then I'm going to reload my JavaScript application. So now I should have that function, load that function. So here I'm looking at the console, and here is the network, right? So the network just tells me which files are being loaded, right, by this page. So you can see that this page right here, to do -js /, it loaded. It was a GET request. It loaded, and it tells you the size and how long it took to load, right? Bootstrap, we loaded Bootstrap. The size, how long it took to load, right? So we have bootstrap.min.css, and then jQuery, bootstrap.min.js, and then bootstrap.min.css. Okay. So now here in console, I'm going to call the load method that I define. And then let's go back here to network, and you see that there's tasks. So it looks like it loaded it, right? And if we click on it, we can see that it was a GET request. We can see that it was successful. And then preview, we have all the JSON there. Right? So we have the JSON from the server.
The main part, at the bottom,
Say that again.
is it right here? I don't have the part below that one line that has name and the headers and all that. I don't.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
You know.
Any of that bottom part.
Oh, this part right here.
Oh, my console's covering it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So this gives you a lot of information. It's very useful because it gives you a lot of information about the GET request that you sent and then the response that you get back from the server. So you can see here the response from the server. Like, I don't know, one of the interesting things, let's see. Well, I guess really the only interesting thing is when it was sent, like the date, right? Yeah, and then the request headers, that's what we're sending. One interesting thing is you can see that we're sending a user agent, and this user agent, for me, it says Mozilla 5.0, X11 Linux, so AppleKit, Chrome 58.0. So what it's saying is that it's sending the browser and the operating system that I'm coming from. So every time you make a request to a server, you're sending the browser and the operating system that you're coming from. Okay. So this shows that we can successfully load that that JSON, right? So then after that, this method is going to return an object, and this object this is very common in JavaScript, but in JavaScript it's called a promise. It returns a promise, and so promises have another object, another method called done. All right, so that so we're going to call dot done. And then what do we pass that method? So that method takes a function. So remember that in JavaScript, we can pass functions to methods. And methods can return functions, right? So we're passing it a function. We don't have to name that function. It's just function with parentheses. But let's see. But typically, the function takes the function that you pass to the method done doesn't have to have a parameter, but if it has a parameter, that parameter when done calls the function that you're passing, it's going to pass the JSON that came back from the server. So I'm going to write here response as a parameter. And then I'm just going to write this out to the console. So console.log response. And then refresh. So then if I call that method load again, you see that it prints out the response from the server. Okay. So questions? Good.
have a placeholder HTML document cancel.
This is a document cancel.
Just for the placeholder .html, which I'm not sure what that is. I also don't have you had tasks in your list, right? Under the names for the network.
You're talking about
On the other screen in the inspector.
right here.
Yeah, under network.
Yep. Yeah, I have tasks.
I don't have that. I have a lot of stuff though. Is that like?
You don't have you might have a lot of stuff because there might have been an error. So check. Like one way to do it is
I
that.
don't have the tasks.
All right, let me take a look.
Okay, so what happens if you call the function load? You just type load and then parentheses, because we're calling the function, and then close parentheses. It doesn't take any parameters. Okay, so now let's see. So you call it, yeah, so you have, right now we have to call a function that does the Ajax call. So now, because you need to pass that as a parameter response. You need to put response in here.
Oh, in here.
Because you're defining that parameter.
And not here? No, this is to print it out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
So is everybody good with that? Let me know if you have any questions, if you don't get something. Good?
I have the email sent out because my workspace on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's do that first.
Did you call the method?
Oh, I still have to call it here?
Mhm.
Wait, just go. Okay.
Okay, so now we're getting data back from the server. So now what we want to do here, so I'm going to delete that, and then what we want to do here is we want to add these li elements like that. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. So first, we need to write out the li element. So I'm going to do var HTML equals li class equals list dash group dash item ID equals. Now, before for the ID, we were using T plus an ID that we were generating ourselves in JavaScript. Now, what we should use instead is an ID from the server, because when we load the page, those are the IDs that we're going to be working with. So ID equals T, and then HTML plus equals. So what we want to do is do HTML dot plus equals task dot ID. But we actually haven't defined the task, right? So what would we? So if we get a list of tasks, what kind of programming construct do you think we need to do to go through and create the LI element for each of those tasks? A loop. Yep. So let me start with the loop. So now in JavaScript, we have to use the for method. So for, and then var I equals 0. I is less than response.length, because response is the array that we're going through. And then I plus plus, which means increment 1 every time, right? And all of this is going to go inside our loop. So as a review, our loop, this is going to execute, right? Then it's only going to execute once. Then this right here, this code is going to execute. And then we're going to do this check. Actually, let me take a step back. This is going to execute one time. Then is going to execute the check. It always executes the check before it actually runs the code. So then if this check evaluates to true, then this code executes. And then after that code is done executed, it executes this right here, which adds 1 to I. And then it goes back and does the check. Then it does the code. Then it does this. And so that's where the loop is. And so the loop ends, so it stops like in a loop when this evaluates to false. Make sense? Okay, so right, so we have that. So now we do task equals response. Response is an array, response at I. Okay. Initially, it's going to be the response at the 0 position, then the 1 position, then the 2 position, and so on. So we're going to be building an LI element for every item in the response array. Any questions? All right. So now we're building LI class equals list group item. So we're just building our HTML, and just like before, we had next ID. Now what we want to do is task.id. And then let's see what we had before. But after that, we had onClick. So onClick equals complete. Okay. And then HTML plus equals. And then we want to pass it task.id. And then HTML plus equals, close the parentheses, and then the quote. And then that closes the LI tag, right? The next one is I class equals glyph icon, and then glyph icon dash OK. And then don't forget to close the I with the I tag. And then let me. Okay, so then div class equals description, and then HTML plus equals, and then we want to write the description, right? So task dot description plus, and then close the div, and then close the li. Okay. And then, just like before right here, we want to do the jQuery search, find the list, and then append the HTML that we just generated. And then we don't have to do this description.val empty. Do you guys remember what this does, what this line does? Line 48.
Oh, did it?
It cleared it out so that
Yep.
you can type something else in.
Yep. It basically finds the HTML element with ID description, which was our input, and then it just clears it out, right? So we don't need that for this case because we're just loading everything from the server. And then let's see, what else did it do? Then this hides the complete item, the little checkbox, right? So that we may have to do or may not have to do, depending on if it's complete or not. So how would you, what programming construct would we do when we have like a case between two cases? If statement, yeah, if else. So if task dot, what's the property? Complete, right? So if task dot complete, then we want to hide it, right? So if task dot complete, then T plus task dot ID plus I at hide. And then otherwise, we don't care about doing anything, right? So in this case, we're just going to do an if statement. Only if the task is complete, we hide the little check mark. Right. All right, questions? You guys understand what we're doing here? Kind of.
It's such a like this is like reading
Yes.
it, I get it, and then like I feel like
Yes.
I think if I was doing this myself like on my own, I would still need to look like step up because like for some reason to me it doesn't flow as smoothly as working in Rails or even like the JavaScript. It's kind of like
It's new, right? It's
Yeah.
very new.
So like I can read it and see, okay, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening. And then I have reasoning, but like I feel like I'm just translating from
From Ruby to
into-
JavaScript.
Well, like trying to, basically translating, and then sometimes I need to look up the translation and make sure I'm doing it with the correct syntax because there's so many, like all of these quotations, like single quotes and double quotes, like remembering where to use it, and then it's just
I get you.
I feel like it would probably take me longer to do this way than it would if I was just
In Ruby.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with the quotations inside the parentheses.
Yes.
Hanging
Yeah.
out there, I'm like.
That's why I like
Yeah.
it. I just like it to be one whole line.
You what?
I just like it to be one whole line rather than HTML plus equals.
Do you want me to change it? to-
No. That takes forever. That takes forever.
It's something I have to think about a little longer.
I can
Yeah.
see the similarities, and then some stuff just like, what in the world?
Like which one?
It's yeah.
It's just certain things like what were you doing? And I was like, what? What was that? Function tag. That's cool. You had typed something. I was like, he had to make that one up. I've never heard of it. I cannot. It might be further up in your code. But I get the idea of what it's doing and how it's.
And you know what? And I think what we're also doing is that we're also mingling in some CSS, like some styling. So then that's like an extra thing. It's like, oh wait, yeah, because I was like virtually big lift icon. Like I'd forgotten that that's actually just you calling up from Bootstrap.
Yeah.
So, wait, look, what is that?
Yeah. This is confusing. The class is very confusing to some people. This class, you're thinking like, oh, like a Ruby class, right? And then you forget like, well, that's an HTML class, which is totally different than a Ruby class.
So is jQuery supposed to be a lot more complicated, or is it supposed to make things easier?
It makes things easier.
Okay.
The main things that it's making easier for us is right, there's a few things. There's this searching, this $. You guys understand what that's probably this right here. This concept is the most important concept in jQuery. This searching concept. You guys understand what that's doing, right?
I mean, I know it's like like almost like an instant variable kind of thing. Is it where it's like it can look in multiple places for that particular item. It's not restricted to just within the function. It can look other places and find what you're talking about. It makes it global, or is that wrong?
I think kind of. So remember that jQuery is like it makes things easier for manipulating the DOM. And the DOM being this document that the browser constructed for the user to see. So we want to manipulate that constructed object, right? So, but to manipulate it, like we want to say, okay, go here and manipulate and change this little thing that's here, change it to this. Or we want to say, okay, go here and change this text and delete that text, right? So we want to go like little specific parts of the document, in the browser. We want to like find little places in that document, right? But how do we find them? How do we say like, okay, change that little thing? So to find them, jQuery uses like CSS selectors. So you've seen in CSS how we style things, right? So if I go here to this style code, in CSS we write .list group dash item or list dash group dash item, right? And then this dot in front of that name means apply this style to every element that has that class, right? So if we had right here an element, like a div element, and we had class equals list group item, then this CSS would be applied to this element, this div element, right? And so not any div element, but any HTML element in the entire page that has that class is going to get that styling, right? And then similarly, if we had IB equals, let's see, item, and in CSS, if we have pound item, and then color, see, let's do background color black. So the pound means apply this CSS style to any element that has the ID item. So you see that for class, apply it to everything. For classes, the dot specifies apply this style to any element that has that class. For pound, apply this style to any element that has that ID. So dot goes to class, pound goes with ID. Does that make sense? All right. So then in jQuery, what they wanted in jQuery was to use the same syntax that CSS uses, these things that are called CSS selectors. They wanted to use that same syntax to be able to search for things in the DOM. So for example, if I go here, and if I do, let's do body, it found that body, right, which is the entire document. So body is just, is not a class and it's not an ID, it's just a tag element, right? So we can search with jQuery, we can search with tag element. I can also do if, that's another tag element, right? And it found, looks like it found 2 divs. And that's first one, it highlights it for me. And then that's another one. I can do input. So it's gonna search for all of the HTML elements that are of type input. And it just found only one, and it's just that one, right? I can do a button, and there's one of them. Or I can also do classes, so I can do form control, .form control. So it's gonna find all of the elements that have that as a class. So all of the elements that have class equals form control. So it looks like it found only one, and it's that one. Right?
So do you not need the pound?
The pound is for find all the elements that have ID. That, so if we wanted to search pound description, then it found that one, right? Because this input, if we look at the code, that input has ID description.
Ooh. So what happens if you don't put the pound?
You're talking about like if we did
The pound is
description like that?
is for IDs, and then the for tags you can just put their name in.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. Just like in CSS, right? In CSS, if you just put the tag name, then it's going to apply that style to all of the things in your document that have that tag, that are that tag. So that's the main thing with jQuery. That's the most important thing in jQuery, is that makes it easier. You were asking Rondell what things it makes easier. So that's one of the things that it makes easier, is the ability to search the DOM by using CSS selectors. So now it's with CSS selectors, then you can chain them together. So for example, I can search for body, and that gives me all the tags that are body, which is just one of them, right? But then And if I put a space and I put a div, then it gives me all the div tags that are inside body. So that's what this syntax means. Body space div means all the div tags inside a body tag. Or I can do body pound description, and that's saying find all the elements that have ID description that are inside a body tag. So let me add one item because we don't have anything. So this right here, that's an LI element, right? And then inside that LI element, there's an I element for italics. So what I can do is I can search for all the LI elements that have an I inside, and I just have one, right? Let me add another one. If I do that search again, see it found 2 of them. But if I had an I element that was outside of an LI element, then it wouldn't be included in this list of things that it found, right? Because it's only searching for I elements that are inside an LI element. Yeah, so if you want to read, like there's like a lot more intricate ways of searching for elements, and just Google like CSS selectors to learn more about the syntax for searching. And the other thing that jQuery does for you that makes things easier is like AJAX calls. So the syntax is a little bit nicer than before. What we were doing was the XML HTTP request. We were creating a new object, and then we were setting a function to unchanged state. Right? Remember all of that? This syntax makes it a little bit easier or cleaner, so that we don't have to.
It finds it and then replaces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You had a question, Crystal?
Can I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So then we haven't tested this code, right? So it may not work. But let me refresh. And then I'm going to call the function load. And you see that it just added all the stuff that's in the server.
So yeah,
Yep.
why do you want that?
Because remember that every time I reload this page, all of the stuff that I added, all of my to-dos that I added, they go away. So I want, when I load the page, I want the JavaScript to talk to the server, the Rails server, and then load all the tasks from the Rails server and show those. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're using a database to store all these things, no?
Yes, I'm using a database in the Rails server. From the JavaScript point of view, we're using an API, right? So we created an API,
What's API stand?
application programming interface. Yep. So we created an API that we send it, we created this server that we send it HTTP requests and we get back information. And In this particular case, the information that we want is all the tasks that are stored in the database. But think about it like an API doesn't just have to load or reply with data that's in a database. An API can do like millions of things. So one thing that an API can do is send an email, for example. So we could create an API that we send a request and say, send an email to 1 million users, all these million users. And then maybe, it's going to start doing that. There's other APIs where you can call them to send text messages to phones. So there's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like Amazon has an API for, I think, searching their database. So you can write an application that searches the Amazon stuff. And then later on, and we probably won't have time today, but we're going to write an API that uses like a weather API so that we can show on our page like the weather, and then we're using the API from another server. Any questions? So it's pretty powerful, right? Because that somebody else can write some service for us, and then we can use it, and then we can write some service for somebody else, and then they can use it.
That's more so like how people do a lot of integrating, like two different programs together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know in my job, they always, sometimes people ask for APIs to generate certain things. So they'll build something based off of somebody else's API. So I think that is.
Mine's a div class description before it takes off.
Say that again.
It's a div class description before it says take it down for a while.
Let me take a look
Oh,
at it. Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I was missing less than sign.
Okay.
This is not the right direction, but less than.
All right. So now what we want to do is when we load our page, we want to call this load function. So at the end of this script right here, I'm just going to call that function load. So here I define it and here I call it. And then now when I refresh my page, see that it just, my items are there, right? But still, when I add another item, so buy cheese, if I add another item and then I refresh, then you see that it just goes away. Right? And the reason for that is because we are not saving it to the database. We're not calling the API. Right? So now that's the next thing that we have to do. So and we can take a break now. Stretch your legs.
There's a vending machine here.
Let me think.
No,
There isn't?
but sometimes they have like food downstairs.
There's coffee right downstairs.
Some nice stuff to make it.
Yeah.
I probably get something. Actually, I was doing really good, and now I'm like
Tired?
You got hot here already?
At least it's not as hot as it was that one time. We came that one time and it was like really hot in here.
classes? Are they just doing the campuses, or are they doing the online classes too?
The iron year,
Yeah.
they're closing everything.
So why do they still have like the papers out there?
They're gonna close when they're done with the current classes.
Yeah, but
Oh, you're talking about the.
yeah, they have like the
Oh.
papers out for people taking the program.
Memoirs.
Yeah, I think.
Mementos,
Yeah.
Cool. So it's like for someone who's like, oh, that's interesting, picks it up. Oh, psych. Is
See, now it's working out.
Oh, you're
An hour
glad.
later, yeah.
They reply to you?
No, they don't reply. I just kept refreshing and found the word. So I'm not sure what happened. That was crazy.
When did they decide to close?
I about 2 weeks ago, they sent out an email to current students and students that had graduated before. And then I don't know, like it was like completely out of the blue, like
Really?
yeah, because they had created this program for scholarships. So you would apply, and then if you met some requirements, I forgot exactly what the requirements were, they would give you a scholarship. And they had like done some deal with some company that, or I forget exactly where, but they had done some deal where they had allocated the funds for so many scholarships. So it was like, you know, people thought like, okay, this is going to continue for a long time, probably. It was unexpected.
Yeah. Because I mean, they told us about scholarships, but it was kind of a catch-22 for all of us here. Because you have to, quit working
Yeah, you have to keep working for the iron year. Yeah,
6 months. That's a long time for that work.
it was 3 months, I think.
Or 3 months.
Yeah.
For $20,000. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
Was it a good school though?
From what I hear, it was like the good thing about it was that that's all you were doing.
Yeah.
So you could really focus on it. And we had good instructors, right? And then you had other people around you that were also working on it. So if you got stuck, you could ask them questions, right? So the combination of you're doing it all the time, which is something that you can just do by yourself if you wanted to, right? Somebody could just quit their job and then just focus all the time in learning, because there's all the resources online. But you can't get that like the teachers, like like if you have a question, you can just ask them.
Yeah.
And also like talking to the other students. Right?
They're closing all locations, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was good, but I mean I think that you can do it. Like you don't have to quit your job. I mean I've never been in that position, I guess, but I mean I imagine that if you're really dedicated and then you just like allocate, so many hours every week to studying. It's like I'm just gonna study. I'm gonna cut out all distractions, like turn off Facebook, turn out text messaging, everything. Or like go to like a place where you can't really, no one can contact you, and just focus like a few hours every week. Yeah, you should be able to do it. And then the other thing also with the Iron Year was the name recognition. Like people, like you can tell an employer, hey, I went to the Iron Year. Would you give me a job? And then they would be more willing to take a risk on you because they knew what the Iron Year taught you. They knew that okay, you met the requirements. Credibility. If you just go and study on your own, yeah, you can't really do that.
But then you can use your, I mean, I guess it depends on the employer, but you could use your GitHub, like build some stuff and put it on there and show them what you can do.
Yeah.
If they don't,
Mhm.
check out this.
Yeah, there are ways to do it. I mean, and our hope with the Code the Dream program is that you start building, like Code the Dream helps you build that resume, and it also gives you some credibility. Oh, you went through Code the Dream, and these are the projects that we built, and then they can come and contact us and say, "What do you think of this applicant?" And we can say, "Yeah, this is this is the work they did. They've been a good student, etc." Yeah.
Be a reference. That'd be cool.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's try doing our little app. All right, so then what we want to do is in this, remember that we have a method, an add method. And what we want to do is we want to, instead of just adding it to the current page, we also want to call our API, and we want to add that task. Okay, so in our API, let me go to work to do app and then tasks controllers. So I want to do the create action, and I just need to pass it a description, right? So what's the URL? Let me go to config and routes because I don't remember the URL. Right, so the URL to create a task is just tasks, but it's a post instead of a get. So now we need to do a post request in JavaScript versus a get request. So I Google here jQuery post, and here's how to do it. It's just $.post, and then the URL. And then in this example, in the URL, after the URL, you pass it as a JavaScript object. You pass it all the parameters. And then jQuery is going to format all the parameters nicely and send it to the server. All right, so let me go back to my index.html. So before that, let me just play in here in the console. So we saw that $.post and then the URL. So the URL is https:// copy this. It's going to be different for you, but for me, it's Rails CTD instructor c9users.io:8081 tasks, right? And then I want to pass it the parameters. So description : let's see, buy cheese. Okay. So if I do that, okay. Let me look at network. Here's the tasks. And you see that I did a request to that URL, and then the request method is post. Right, so it did a post request. And then if you go all the way down in the request headers, after request headers, you're going to see form data, and you see that the form data that it passed was description : buy cheese. Right. So if I refresh this, you see that now buy cheese appears there. Right? So that's how we want to do it. So inside this method add, I'm going to do $.post, and then I want to pass it the URL and then the parameters. Description. Sorry, Let me do the comma right here. So, description colon, and then I need to get the description, and the description is what the user type in the input field, right? So right now I'm just going to do description because I'm going to define a variable description. Okay, so here we already have, I'm just going to move this up. So the variable description, we're searching for the tag that has ID description, and then we're getting the current value of it. And then we're passing that to server, right? And then I think that that should be it. So let's refresh, and then now let's see, like buy batteries. Click on add. Okay, so we have that there. So it added it. So now let's refresh and see if it stays there. Yeah, it stays there, right? So now what it's doing is that when we add something, it makes a call to the API to create a new task. And then when we load the page, it makes a call to the API to load all the tasks from the API. Right? So any questions? Okay. So let's see. So there's a few things like when it looks like we have an error when we load. We always have these check marks, right? So if I add another thing like by, I don't know, butter, then it's not complete, right? It doesn't have the check mark. But if I refresh, like for some reason it has that check mark, right? So that's a bug. So let's try to figure out what's going on there. So we had our yeah, I think we made a mistake here. And so if it's not complete, then we want to hide the check mark. So we had if task.complete, then hide. We actually want to hide it if it's not complete.
For the description, can you go back to that part, the post description?
Right here.
No? What is this?
As you have the this right here before, because that was below and I moved it up because I'm using that variable right here.
No, I don't. I needed parentheses.
Okay.
But why does it say no? The minutes screen. Let me see.
Okay. So in the meantime, it looks like that fixed it, right?
I'm
So
missing. Still have an issue.
what's the issue that you're having? Or let me-
Something with the list. First it was doing no. They got rid of the previous thing that had been on my list the whole time. It's gone. I tried adding 2 more things to the list and it just kept the last thing I added.
Okay, so let's see. Var description, $, val. So you're saying if I add something, then it
I
adds.
mean, it's there. When you refresh, though, I don't know if it will be.
Okay, let me see. When you refresh, it's not there.
It takes away the last thing. It only keeps one thing.
Oh, uh-huh.
See, it erases things from the list.
Interesting. So test 2, test 3, and then refresh. Test 3. Okay, so let's see. Might be in the loop. Um,
It was fine before. It just wasn't saving the things I added to the list. It was
Mhm.
only after I did the post.
and let me look at the controller. New, that looks right. Yep. And what are when you do if you look at the console and you refresh the application, what do tasks see like right here in preview? What do you see? Do you see all the tasks there or not?
How do I move this to like my console to the side? Oh, maybe I can just close this one. Maybe it's not here. Oh, it's not. Yes, I see a bunch of things that don't actually show up.
Okay, so it's not showing up for some reason.
Yeah. I'm gonna get rid of the hide thing. Maybe.
That might be it. Yeah. Hmm.
What is it?
So one thing I can do is I can change what I'm pointing to you. So so instead of using my API, I'm going to try to use your API. I don't, well, it may not work because you, when you click on share, let's see. Actually, no.
That's true. Just clear my history. I'm gonna see if that's.
Okay, so I think I can use, let me use your API instead of mine. Okay, yeah, for me, all of them appear. So it must be a problem in the JavaScript. let's see if we can find the issue. There might be something that we're just not looking at. Task response I. Yeah, it might be. It might be some malformed HTML. Any of you guys see anything?
What do you think, maybe like a quote?
Yeah, like a quote or
Where does the, when you say variable HTML, then you have one quote, and you have double quote, which the double quote surrounds the list group item. And then you say ID equals double quote T, and then you close the single quote.
what line right here?
No, the two up.
The thing is that everything was showing up whenever I added something until I did the post thing.
Until you do the what?
Until I did the post part, the about post. Before that, I kept whatever I kept what I had previously saved, and then it just wasn't saving what new things I typed in, and it would add them to the list. And now it's like, I don't know. It's weird. But I mean, I guess it could be something previously and now it's showing up. But I didn't have any issue until I tried to do post.
If you go to that, where you define HTML,
Right here?
right there, and you go all the way to the ID tag, you open a two quotes, right?
Uh-huh.
Right there. Where is that one being closed?
Right here.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, let's see if we put a space there, what happens. Still.
Because then you have
On click, complete.
and then it closes it right there.
Div li. Let's see what happens if we don't hide it. Nope. Same thing.
Anything in the post?
Let's look at the post. So post, that's the URL. No, it doesn't seem like there's anything there. Are you getting an error in the console? Like, when you add something or when you load, are you getting an error?
No, there's no messages.
There was something highlighted red there.
Oh, that's the placeholder thing. That's been the whole time, but I'm not sure what it is.
Let me
It
see.
says placeholder HTML. That's what I told you about before. regular class, I have this placeholder .html canceled. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they're over there.
All right, so yeah, let's try to list.
I'm gonna have all these extra things on my list.
What about for the loop? Oh, there we go. Yeah, he found the error. So we don't have, you don't have the braces for the 4. Yep.
Who was it?
It was Narayan.
No.
Yep.
Stupid little. Well, the word is perfect.
And I'm gonna need to close at the end. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, don't forget your braces, guys.
Oh, wow, what's my list?
Does it work now?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have a lot of random things on my list now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, so next time you see Nariam, you have to thank him.
Yeah.
All right, so cool. So let's see. All right, so then our, when we add something and then we refresh, now it looks like it's working, right?
And if you click on it, you get the check mark, right?
Yeah.
And then if you refresh, what happened?
That's not done yet. That part is not done. So if I refresh,
It takes the.
yeah, it takes a check mark. So now we have to do something that when we click complete, we update the task so that it's complete. Using the same API. So here's our complete task or complete method. And so now we have to find a jQuery put. I don't know if they have one, jQuery put.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I think we have to just use the Ajax method and the type we have to put. All right, so
That's too updated.
to update it, yep. Because if you look at our routes, tasks, and then put is the method that we're using instead of post or get. Right? So I'm gonna do it here. So $, yeah, just to make sure that they haven't added because they keep updating on jQuery. I'm gonna just do put. Yeah, put is undefined. So .ajax, and then URL type. So we'll go back. URL, and then the URL is going to be the same one. Tasks. And then after that, type, and it's going to be put. And then we need the ID, right? The task ID. So it's going to be data, or let's see. Yeah, data. So data colon, and then let's see, what do we need for our tasks when we update it? So we need to pass in the ID, the description, and then a complete value. Okay, so let me go back here. All right, so the ID, the description, and complete. All right, so where am I gonna get that data from?
Never mind, you get it.
We haven't actually built it.
Yeah.
So we have a problem right here because we're using next ID, right? When we should actually be putting the ID of the item here, right? So basically, instead of using next ID, we want to put the ID that the API gave us, right? Let me show you what happens when I add a new item. So test. You go to network, and then let me clear that. All right, so I'm doing a post request to that URL to create a new item, and then it replies with the ID 8, complete, the description, all of that. So it replies with all that information. So we want to use that ID and add it here, right? So, but how do I do that? So I need to wait before I actually add that div. I need to wait for a response for the server, right? So here I'm going to do a done method, and I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. Response. Basically, I'm calling done, and then I'm passing it a method. And so when I do that done, it's going to call this method whenever it returns from a response returns from the server. And all of this, I'm going to move inside that method. I want to do that only after I get a response from the server. Right. So then instead of next ID is going to be response.id. So response, in the response, now we're not getting back an array, we're getting back a JavaScript object. So response.id, and then this is also response.id, and then this is response.description. And then instead of next ID is response.id, and we don't need to update the next ID. So let's test this. So refresh. Looks like I have an error.
Missing parentheses.
Yeah, missing parentheses.
So you got function, done function response. Do you use that done method
The function.
at the header?
Yeah. Function
Right there.
response. You need
After
another one at the
response.
end. As a response.
What do I need?
Another parentheses after response.
Closing parentheses, right?
Right here?
Then
Because you have parentheses around response and then
Oh,
you
I-
have parentheses.
Yeah, but I have it right here,
right
right?
there. Oh, you're right.
Oh, so you close that down there. Then if you're closing that down there, you're missing. Wait, so all of that is within the parentheses for response?
Yeah, because this is the whole function.
On line 57, you have a mistake.
Oh yeah, I have an error here. Okay, so
Oh, is that what you're missing the parentheses? No.
oh, because I was working on this. Let me delete that for now. So remember that I was working on the complete.
Yeah.
Let me delete that for now.
Okay, you changed ID in the thing to response ID where? And
So response ID, so it was next ID here, so to response ID on line 44, and then line 46 and 52. So there's 3 instances where I change it to ID.
I don't have mine set right now on mine, so I don't know.
So if I add something, so this DS, and then I look at the HTML element, you can see that it's T9, right? So it looks like it works,
And when you click the, you haven't worked on that yet, right?
right?
Okay.
So I have now I'm putting there the ID from the server, right?
Right.
So now what I need to do is somehow I need to store the value for complete and the value for the ID, right? So I'm going to store it in the DOM element itself. So I'm going to do after ID right here. Let's see when. It's really complicated. Don't want to confuse you too much.
Because you're about to do an assignment, right? To store that ID.
Yeah.
Can you do an assignment operation when you're concatenating all that?
Don't know if I follow. What do you mean?
So that variable HTML, basically a whole string, right?
Yep.
Can you perform an assignment operation within that concatenation?
Yeah, what I was thinking you can do, so you can do something like this. You can do task-id equals, that's HTML, right? And then right here, what you can do like this is you can do response.id. Now, I add that, and then I look at my HTML, you see that it says task-id 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That was confusing me.
So I think that's what you're referring to, right?
That's exactly what I was referring to.
So that's what I'm going to do. So task-id is going to have the ID, and then I need one for complete, right? So, but complete,
How do you comment out the?
to comment out a line,
Yeah.
it's / in front of the line that you want to comment.
No, like a block.
To comment out multi-line, it's / and then go all the way to where you want to end the comment, and it's ***. Same as Java, right?
Same as almost any
Yeah.
other programming.
Okay, so I think this is enough for now.
// and then star //
No, to do a multi-line comment is /* to begin, and then */ to end. Okay, so I'm not going to confuse you too much with it, with this. We're just going to leave it like that. And the next time, we're going to do another API with a weather app. We're going to build a weather app.
We're not gonna work on the complete function.
Yeah, not right now. I think it's going to be more confusing. And I want you to go over other stuff first. Like, I would like to get to the React framework where it makes things a little bit simpler to do this kind of stuff. But at least you kind of got a taste of jQuery, right? So even though we really haven't really gotten too much into jQuery, I think it's like a good taste. For next, I would really like you to learn more about the CSS selectors. So I was thinking for next week's class, we'll have a short quiz at the beginning on CSS selectors, and what basically we'll do is it will ask you in plain English, like, find an element that has these characteristics using jQuery.
You want us for Saturday?
Saturday. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So I'll see you guys on Saturday.